This video is going to be hard for some of you, and that's honestly the point, because Americans need to realize that other people, other countries have opinions about America that we may not always like to hear, but when you live abroad, you're going to hear them. I didn't fully grasp this until I left and started having conversations with people like our 80-year-old language teacher who asked me, why do Americans choose to shoot their children? I had no idea how to answer that initially. But after living here over a year and realizing that this is common anywhere you go in the world, it's important for you to realize this and be prepared. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel, become a member. We put out exclusive content for our members regularly, and we'd love to have you follow our journey. So I want to start by talking about why Americans seem to struggle with this concept of criticism. I at least was taught from a very young age that the United States of America was the best country in the world. And I think a lot of us never change this mindset. Our viewpoint never changes because many people from the United States of America never leave it. They never go out and experience this confrontation, if you will, with the values that we were born with. We never hear other opinions. If you look at the news channels that you're watching in the USA, they're all centered about the USA. They don't show you the political gaffes or the opinions that are shown on news networks in Albania, for instance. We, as Americans who have not traveled abroad, rarely see another viewpoint. We rarely hear another viewpoint. And I think that's really a disservice to our country personally. This video today was inspired by a comment that we got on a recent YouTube video, one that we did with our Albanian immigration attorney, talking about his perception of America and Americans moving to Albania and other countries. He said something that sparked a little bit of outrage in some of the comments, and that was, how dare he criticize America? He's never been there. Well, I'm here to tell you that everyone around the world has an opinion of America, and a lot of them are not flattering. A lot of them are not something that you as an American necessarily want to hear. But when you live abroad, you're going to have some of these conversations. Now, let me also say, when you encounter other Americans abroad, you are much less likely to get into these political discussions or debates. The conversation changes when you're talking to, for me, local Albanian people who have spent their lives looking up to the United States of America. And the comment that Tahir made was saying that when Donald Trump refused to concede the election, he did the most Albanian thing that Tahir could think of. And look, this video is not directly about politics, but you must understand that we project our political power globally. We project our values globally. So everyone does have an opinion. They have questions, they have thoughts. They hear things like, we have mass shootings every day, or that one healthcare incident could bankrupt you. And oftentimes the conversations I have about this are genuine curiosity. Like I said a minute ago, our 80-year-old language teacher who has children who have immigrated to America, she is very well traveled and very knowledgeable. She asked me very sincerely, why do you shoot your children? Why do Americans allow that to happen? And I still don't have a great answer for this, because the reality is, this is a very unique American problem that we face. Americans have become desensitized to this because there are so many shootings. There are so many instances of major violence that it's just one more bit on the news. It's not as outrageous to us as, hello. It should be. The world has a narrative about the United States. And I think it's really tough for a lot of Americans to understand that this narrative that other countries, other people have, that's largely due to the media. It's largely due to the information that they're given, the pop culture that we spread around the world, and what people know about our country. And it's not always flattering. It's sometimes very, very uncomfortable. And that is something that you will face and you will need to talk through when you meet local people from another country that have only seen their news about the United States of America, when they've only seen our pop culture. They're genuinely looking for perspective, for understanding. And if you can't have a conversation about that, you are really, really going to struggle in most foreign places. Look, there are some countries that are way more welcoming to Americans than others, but I've yet to find a country where they view us as supreme, as we as Americans generally do. I'm not trying to share my political views. I'm trying to help people understand that everyone has an opinion about the United States of America, whether they've ever been there or not, much like many Americans have viewpoints on many other countries they've never visited. For instance, when Spencer and I decided that we were going to sell everything and move to Albania, we heard multiple times, "Why would you do that? It's so unsafe. You're insane. Why would you go to a third world country instead of a real country like France or Germany or something?" And, well, the reality on the ground is very, very different. For instance, there are not mass shootings here. If you have a healthcare incident, you're going to get help. They're not going to ask who your insurer is before they help you fix your broken leg. We actually have a friend who was not a resident at the time that she had a medical incident. She went into the hospital and they just helped her. They fixed the situation. They never asked for her name. They never asked for payment. They were concerned about her well-being. And that's something I think a lot of us as Americans struggle to even believe exists, because we've gotten so used to our way of life and the way that we do things. And the way that we do things is certainly beneficial in some ways, but there are downsides. And it's very hard for someone living in the United States who's never traveled abroad to understand these viewpoints. Another example I'll give you, I was talking to a friend of mine from high school who said, "I would love to come visit you someday, but I'm afraid that my plane will get shot down on the way to Europe." And all I could do was laugh, because the reality is, and this is not a funny reality, but it's accurate, you're a lot more likely to get shot going to church or going to school. And that is something that is really hard for a lot of other countries and people to understand. Like I said with the teacher earlier in the reference, why do you shoot your children? I would love if in the comments you can help me answer this. If you can help me justify this, because this is something I as an American still really, really struggle with. We have the power to make change. We can change how our society works. I think a lot of people really struggle to differentiate when they are being criticized and when the U.S. political system is being criticized, because I, at least from a young age, was kind of taught that, we are America and our values are very important to us. We project those throughout the world in a number of ways. So it's very hard for some people to separate that. I don't get offended when someone asks me a political related question that I may or may not agree with. I try to share my viewpoint. I try to share the viewpoints of the people around me, the people that I know. I try to give a balanced perspective. Here's what's going on. Here's why it's going on. I don't get offended by these things, and you really shouldn't either. I would tell you, if this is something you can't get over, if you're very staunchly like, these are my beliefs and I'm going to defend them no matter what, you're going to have an unpleasant time in most countries that you go to interacting with local people, because everyone, especially people who have never been to America, are very, very curious about it. You have to remember that we make the pop culture, the movies, the content that is passed around the world. People have opinions about our country. And like I've said, they are not all flattering. And you will be faced with this. Look, it's not in a confrontational way, generally. People are just curious. They want to know more. They want to understand the mindset. People have stereotypes of the United States of America in their head, much like we have stereotypes of Albania. For instance, if you ask most Americans about Albania, they're going to tell you it is incredibly unsafe and you shouldn't go there. Or they've seen some, reference from the movie Taken, or some old clip from a TV show. The Simpsons come to mind for me. There was like a really old episode right before the fall of communism, and like these are the things that people know, because most Americans don't have a great understanding of how the rest of the world works. And that's truly a disservice to us. It is hard to believe that healthcare is affordable in a lot of places and you don't have to wait forever. You can get treatment. I had a conversation with a relative very recently who was complaining about the healthcare in the United States. But when I said, our contribution into the national healthcare system in Albania is less than 20 euros a month, she was perplexed. She didn't believe me. She was like, well, what is the deductible like? How long do you have to wait? And the reality is, like, those concepts don't exist here. Like, you pay into the system and they take care of you. Yes, if you need, like, super, super specialty treatment, it is mildly harder here. But if you go break your leg or break your wrist, or some number of, like, mildly common things, you're going to be treated and walk out the door for pennies in comparison to the US. You're not going to suddenly be bankrupt and homeless because you had to go to the hospital. We have another friend that comes to mind that had a health issue and delayed going to the hospital to almost a catastrophic point because of the cost concerns. And that's so foreign here. It doesn't happen. It wouldn't happen. There's a social fabric that, in my opinion, we now lack in the United States. We are so caught up about left and right and what state you're in. Is it a blue state? Is it a red state? That we've forgotten that we're people. A belief in Albania, common saying, loosely translated, is the religion of Albania is Albanian. Like, the people come first in this country. They take care of themselves. Yes, there are problems. Yes, there's corruption. There's, some litter. People complain about litter. There are all of these little things. But you've got to put it into perspective. You have to realize that the United States of America is not superior in every way. And I think if you talk to a lot of people who have left the United States for some period of time, maybe they've come back, but if they've left the United States, they have a very, very different viewpoint on our country and things we could improve and how we could do better. Look, I'm not unpatriotic. I love the country that I come from, but I left America because I was tired of the cultural decline. I was tired of, like, all of our neighbors being concerned about what political affiliation we were, or all of these other, in my mind, very silly things, when we're all just people. You've got to remember that. Everyone is just a person at their core. And when you're in a foreign country, they're curious. Why are you here? Why did you choose Albania, for instance? I think that's something Tahir touched on in his video, and it's something we've heard often. For years since the fall of communism, the dream in Albania has been to move to the United States for a better life. And Spencer and I moved to Albania for a better life. And we know countless people now that have done the same thing. And that really comes down to, in my opinion, perspective and the things that matter to you the most. Do we need to make a huge six-figure salary here? Is like our corporate climb the most important thing about life? No. For us, it was finding peace. It was for finding calm. It was for building a life for ourselves instead of working for some giant conglomerate corporation that frankly doesn't care about you at the end of the day, and they will make you a riff at some point, a reduction in force. They'll lay you off, and then what do? Suddenly in America, you don't have health care, you can't afford your mortgage, you're in a really, really bad state. Nothing is perfect, but it's important for you to really evaluate what matters to you. And for us, it was coming to a country like this, where it is generally very, very peaceful, where things are calm, where people are curious, they want to get to know you. But yeah, they're going to ask you why the things that they see in America that they just can't comprehend why they happen. Somebody is going to ask you about gun violence. Somebody is going to ask you about healthcare. And, well, recently, they're going to talk about the politics too. I can't tell you how embarrassed I was, a month ago when I saw on the news in Albania that they were literally making fun of the President of the United States for, solving a war in Albania that didn't exist. He mixed up Armenia and Albania, and this has become a joke around the world. No, that's not on Fox News. It's not on the American media, but it is on everyone else's media. Everyone else is talking about how the President of the United States didn't know the difference between the two countries, or he had some speaking gaffe, or who knows. I'm not here to defend that or justify that. It happened. But the reality was, it was on the news for several days. It was literally a joke between the Prime Minister of Albania and the President of France. Like, it was a joke. And you have to be ready to see these things from a new light because, again, we as Americans don't see that on the media that you watch every day. You're going to be faced with a new reality when you come to a foreign country. And look, just like Americans have opinions of other countries, every other country has an opinion of Americans. My goal here is not to stereotype, but you hear from people pretty regularly, like Americans are very loud, they're very obnoxious. You hear all of these different perspectives about the country, and you just can't take them as personal attacks. A lot of the people in these countries who have never visited America, they have viewpoints that may not be exactly right, just the same as we as Americans do. And you need to prepare for that. You need to be comfortable with that. You need to understand that it's not about you personally. And when you personally get to know somebody, they have more like big cultural questions. I know I keep coming back to this, but like this is something that really sat with me and continues to. Why do you choose to shoot your children? Like, think about that. Really think about that and see if you can answer it. If you can, please help me. Because there are many countries around the world where you can own a gun, but you don't see mass shootings every day. We have some things to work on as Americans, and we need to wake up and realize that. As soon as you realize that, as soon as you get a different perspective, as soon as you take even a couple month-long vacation, you will have a different perspective on the United States of America, the country that I was born in, the country that I'm very proud to be from. But that does not mean that you have to be aligned with all of the things that are going on. We do talk to a number of people right now who are leaving the United States because they are not happy with the political choices that the country has made. But we also talk to a lot of people who are just looking for a simpler life, one that's not solely revolved around money, one that is peaceful. Politics are not the point of this video. A political comment sparked this conversation. It it pushed me to make this content and make this video for you. But honestly, politics are missing the bigger picture here. It's more about American tribalism in my mind. And it makes us very hypersensitive to any kind of criticism. I can't speak for everybody, but I was truly taught from a very young age that, like, we are the land of the free, we are the best country in the world, we excel at essentially everything. And when you have traveled, you realize that that is not the case. The United States of America is very good at a lot of things, but we have some real failings too. And look, we're not going to improve until we think about those things, until we address those things. Nothing is going to change until we have a better, broader perspective about how the rest of the world sees us. I'm not going to bother to name the countries here, but I can certainly tell you there are places that I've been, that I've traveled, that I dread handing them my passport because you get an, ugh, American kind of response. That's not true in Albania. They generally are very appreciative and curious and love us. But this is something you are going to experience. You have to realize that the rest of the world generally does not view us as favorably as we view ourselves. And as an American who spent the majority of my life in the Midwest, that is very contradictory to what I used to think or believe. I have family members who still, they can't conceive that we are lacking in any way other than maybe like some political turmoil. But they frankly don't really see a problem with the shootings. It's just sort of a part of life because we have, you know, the Second Amendment. Guys, there's a better way. With guns specifically, look at Switzerland. Everybody in Switzerland owns a gun. How many mass shootings have happened in Switzerland? Very, very few. After living abroad for a while, your lens starts to change. You start to take in these conversations, and you don't take them personally. They just make you think. They make you think about the eroding social fabric in the U.S. I remember growing up as a kid in a farm town, like there was always somebody there. A neighbor, a stranger, they would do whatever they needed to help you. They would, as they say, give you the shirt off their back. But in the interviews we've been doing recently, we've talked to many Americans who said, I left because I didn't have a friend. I didn't have anyone who could take me to my hospital appointment. I had to get a taxi. And it was the most heartbreaking point in my life there. That's not how this country works. I read comments as I answer a lot of our YouTube comments. I read comments about, you know, be careful moving to another country. What happens if you get sick? What happens if this thing goes on? And look, I'm here to tell you that people take care of each other here. Like in Albania specifically, like the family is very important. The family unit, you see people living in generational housing, but also like you're welcomed into families. People get to know you and they will do anything to help and support you. We have a friend who needed to go to another country for some medical treatment. And there were numerous people that were like, let's go, we're taking you. There was someone there to help. There's always someone here to help here. And that's, again, another thing that I think has really become foreign in the U.S. We are so worried about ourselves. We're so divided politically that this individualism, everybody is out for themselves. It's really, really hurt the social fabric of the country. And it's eroded trust in everyone. It's made everyone on edge and on guard all of the time. And then they take these genuinely curious comments or statements or truths. Donald Trump did not concede the election, and that is just not the American way. It was a shock around the world because there are many younger democracies, many younger countries who looked up to us as a beacon of like idealistic politics. Like we'd made it work. And then there was this big flash moment where it was like, oh, it's not working anymore. What's going on? And again, this isn't about politics. It's about the point that you need to understand. You are going to be confronted with these conversations. And you need to become comfortable with that. It's not about the party that you are in. Nobody talks about that here. We regularly sat down to dinner with Republicans and Democrats alike because nobody asks, nobody cares. And sometimes politics do come up, very rarely, generally with new people from the US. But when they do come up, you're able to have a peaceful, cordial conversation about it. And maybe your views are not aligned, but you're still respectful with each other because in a foreign country, there are way fewer Americans. And the Americans tend to try and stick together and try to relate to each other and have each other's back and be sociable with each other. And this is something that it feels to me like we lost a long, long time ago in the US. And it's something I really, really hope the course corrects itself. We need to put in some work. We need to do a serious deep dive and start thinking about how we're viewed around the rest of the world. Maybe more importantly, like, is our current political situation, is our current cultural situation aligned with the values that we grew up with? For me, at least, they're not. And that really is one of the things that drove me to say, it's time to move abroad. It's time to find a cultural, social fabric that I fit into, that I feel comfortable and safe in. We weren't running away from anything. We could afford to live in the US. We were in a very nice, safe neighborhood. We had good jobs. We had, by all accounts, we had achieved the American dream. But after achieving the American dream, I still walked into a cheesecake factory and then watched a drive-by shooting. And I was like, what the hell is happening here? This is insane. There is a different way of life. Most other countries experience a very different way of life. And if you've ever thought about moving abroad, if you're just tired of like the work culture, the social culture, the political environment in the United States, make a plan and spend some time abroad. Move abroad if you want, if you can. It will really change you. For us, in the best way. Love for your country and criticism for your country can exist in the same breath. I love America. I am very, very grateful to have grown up in a place that allowed me so many opportunities. It taught me how to make money. It taught me how to grow professionally. It taught me how to be an entrepreneur. But I don't align with what's currently going on in the country. And I will tell you that I do have many criticisms of it. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of comments about me being liberal or a Democrat or something, but I grew up in a family that was very mixed about this. Half of them were Democrat, half of them were Republican. I voted on both sides. For me, it's about morals. It's about taking care of people first. It's about doing the right thing for the humans around you and in your life and in your country. And we've lost sight of that, in my opinion. We are so caught up in all of this nonsense, red versus blue, Democrat, Republican, that we've stopped just seeing people for people. And until we get back to that, until we start seeing that people come first, we're going to continue to have political division and political challenges and all of these other social catastrophes, in my opinion. And we've got to do better, guys. If you're going to live abroad, if you're going to move abroad, you need to be comfortable with this. You need to be comfortable with the idea that, like, you are going to hear criticism about the United States. That really varies based on the country that you're in. Like I've said, Albanians generally very much love Americans because we had their back. during the conflict with Kosovo. We showed up and we did the right thing. And they seem to be overly gracious and grateful for that. But that's not true in all of the places that you may be interested in living or visiting. And you have to remember not to take it personally. So, in closing this, I want to challenge you the next time you hear an opinion about the United States that you don't like or agree with, don't get mad. Don't snap at them. Don't say, I can't believe a travel channel and expats would talk about politics. Well, our politics have literally been pushed around the world. So it's going to happen. Instead of getting upset about that, try to understand why. Have a dialogue with them. Understand their viewpoint. Understand where they're coming from. Maybe it'll help you. Maybe it'll help you understand something that you didn't know. Maybe you'll learn something. And, maybe you'll disagree with them. But at least take the time to ask why. Ask where the viewpoint came from. Think critically about some of these things. Don't just get offended. It is so easy to just, defend the country that we are citizens of, that we were born in, to our death. But is that really making things better? Sometimes you need to self-reflect. Sometimes you need to look within and say, can we do better? Are some things going wrong? Is it okay to have mass shootings every day? Is there a balance between gun violence and gun ownership that makes sense? There is. There is. You just have to put in the work. You have to think about it. You have to come to consensus. Most importantly, you have to have tough conversations. You have to sit down with the people that you disagree with and have this discussion. You can do it in a polite, professional, cordial way. But if you don't listen to altering viewpoints, nothing is ever going to change. It doesn't matter whether you're liberal or conservative. If you live in a bubble, if you put yourself in a bubble to protect yourself, nothing's ever going to change. And as an American, I would like to say and hope we can do better. People have discussions here, and you need to be able to have discussions about uncomfortable topics. I know I've said it 20 times in this video, but why do we shoot our children? Why do we allow that to happen? Please, let that sink in. Let that sink in. The gun violence in America has gotten out of control. The healthcare system in America is not amazing. It is absurd that you may be bankrupt if you have one medical incident. It's not how the rest of the world works. And we deserve better. We just deserve better. So, thank you for watching. I really appreciate every subscriber on this channel. I am very grateful to all of you for watching and continuing to support us and our journey abroad. And look, if you have very strong beliefs of any kind and you want to do an interview with us about your life abroad, let us know. We'd love to do it. We are happy to talk about these things because the only way you make meaningful change is through conversation. It's through real dialogue with real people. So, thank you again. See you soon. Bye-bye.